I'm Kala. Before the age of 32, my life unfolded precisely according to the blueprint I had meticulously drawn. I had a career I loved, serving as a partner at a top educational consulting firm in Chicago, with a stable six-figure annual salary. I lived in a high-rise apartment I owned downtown, with a skyline view of towering buildings from my floor-to-ceiling windows. I relished the independence and freedom of single life, sweating it out at the gym downstairs in the mornings, engaging in sharp debates with industry elites on weekdays, and enjoying drinks with a few friends or visiting art museums on weekends. My life motto was that happiness and security should stem from within, not depend on others. However, my mother, a traditional Irish-American woman, viewed my single status as the greatest regret of her life. From my 30th birthday onwards, her urging escalated from occasional mentions to a daily required course. There were sighs on the phone, subtle hints during family dinners, and she even sent links to articles about health risks for older women. "Kala, darling," she would say in that worried tone. "I'm not forcing you, I'm just afraid you'll be all alone when you're old. Look at your cousin Jennifer, her kids are already in elementary school, how happy she is." These words were like soft knives, unsettling me. I loved my mother, and I knew her worries stemmed from love, but precisely because of that, I felt suffocated. On an unusually cold autumn day in 2022, my mother's eyes welled up during a video call. She said her greatest wish was to walk me down the aisle and hand me over to a trustworthy man in her lifetime. To put her mind at ease, and to get some peace and quiet, I finally relented. "Okay, Mom," I conceded wearily. "I promise you, I'll meet your friend's son." Our first meeting was arranged at an elegant Italian restaurant. I admit, I went with the intention of just going through the motions. But when Mark, dressed in a well-fitting dark gray wool sweater, stood up with a gentle smile to greet me, my guard involuntarily dropped a little. He wasn't as dull or eager as I imagined a blind date would be. He was handsome, witty, and his eyes held a comfortable focus. He spoke enthusiastically about his restaurant co-owned with a partner, describing it as a new American fusion restaurant to which he had poured his heart and soul. "Starting a business is really hard," he said, taking a sip of red wine with a smile. "There are endless trivial matters to deal with every day, from menu design to handling difficult customers. But whenever I see customers leave satisfied, I feel it's all worth it." He described it so concretely, filled with passion and aspirations for the future, that I had no doubt about his entrepreneurial status. More importantly, he seemed genuinely to be listening to me. When I talked about my work, those complex corporate training cases and consulting projects, he didn't show impatience or try to change the subject, unlike many men. He would ask insightful questions, and his eyes showed genuine admiration. "Kala, you're truly amazing," he said. "Building such a career on your own, you're the smartest woman I've ever met." That night, we talked for over 3 hours. From careers to travel, from movies to future plans. Everything he displayed, ambition, humor, a desire for family, and respect for me, perfectly matched all my parents' expectations for their son-in-law, and even quietly shook my own commitment to singlehood. As I walked out of the restaurant, the Chicago evening breeze on my face, for the first time, I had a feeling, maybe Mom was right. Maybe I really could have both a career and love. Our relationship progressed rapidly. Mark was a perfect boyfriend. He knew how to create romance, remembered every anniversary, and would drive for over an hour just to bring me a dessert I had mentioned. He introduced me to his friends and family, and they all raved about him, saying he was filial, reliable, and had business acumen. His parents particularly liked me, always saying I brought Mark good luck. We spent weekends in Napa Valley, California, wine tasting under the grapevines. We cooked together in my apartment, clumsily trying various complex dishes. He would wait for me downstairs at my company after work, giving me a surprise hug. The sense of happiness he created was like a warm, intricate web, tightly enveloping me. I was immersed in it, and my past convictions and independence seemed less important in the face of these sweet daily routines. Less than a year after we met, he proposed to me. In a penthouse restaurant overlooking Lake Michigan, he knelt on one knee, holding a dazzling diamond ring, and with tears in his eyes, asked if I would marry him. All my friends were there, screaming and urging me on. I looked at his sincere face, recalled every moment since we met, and nodded tearfully. Wedding preparations became another stage for him to express his love. My family had no financial demands on him, but my mother hoped the wedding would be grand and respectable. This played right into Mark's hands. "Kala, you are the most important person in my life. You deserve the grandest wedding in the world." He insisted on hiring the city's most expensive wedding planning company. From choosing the venue and customizing the wedding dress to designing the invitations, he was hands-on in everything, pursuing extreme luxury. "This venue is too small, it's not worthy of you. This band isn't professional enough, I want our guests to have the best experience." He constantly increased the budget, and his parents fully supported him without objection. According to him later, the entire wedding, including the honeymoon in Europe, cost nearly $40,000. I once felt it was too extravagant, but he always managed to envelop me in love. Darling, money can be earned again, but our life's memories only happen once. I just want everyone to know that marrying you is my honor. Looking back now, that grand wedding was merely the groundbreaking ceremony for his empire of lies. And I was the clueless, most radiant ribbon-cutting guest. In May 2024, we officially married. Our married life outwardly seemed harmonious. Since my apartment was close to my company and conveniently located, I mostly stayed at my own place on weekdays, which we had agreed upon before marriage. Mark also expressed understanding and support for this, saying he was proud of my career. We only truly lived together like a traditional couple on weekends and holidays. But some subtle changes began to appear. Every time I returned to our shared home, he would eagerly discuss having children with me. Kala, look, my college classmates' kids are already running errands, and I really want to be a dad too. He would place my hand on his lower abdomen. Don't you think there should be a child of ours here? I explicitly refused him. My career was in a critical expansion phase, and it was impossible for me to get pregnant and have a child at that time. Moreover, although we were married, I always felt we needed deeper integration. I could sense his disappointment, but he didn't press the issue much, only insisting that our marital life must be of good quality. Looking back now, perhaps what he desired was not a child, but a tool to bind me more deeply to him, a bargaining chip that would give him more reason to ask me for financial help in the future. The first concrete, tangible alarm rang on a long weekend in October 2024. I noticed his white BMW SUV was gone. I casually asked about it, and he, looking down at his phone, answered without lifting his head. Oh, I lent it to a college classmate. He's going through a divorce, and his wife took his car, so it's inconvenient for him to get to work without a car. I figured the car was just sitting there, so I lent it to him for a few months, and he pays me some gas money and usage fees every month. It's quite a good deal. His explanation was seamless. He even portrayed himself as a loyal friend. I actually believed him at the time. The highest level of a lie is when it makes you feel that doubting it is an insult to the other person's good intentions. Once a corner of the lie's lid was lifted, the stench of decay inside could no longer be concealed. Not long after that incident, he first reached out to me. It was a Sunday evening, and we had just finished dinner. He seemed preoccupied, hesitating for a long time before speaking. Darling, he rubbed his hands, his eyes darting away. The restaurant's cash flow hasn't been very good lately. I want to do some online promotions and advertising, but the initial investment is a bit large, so could you support me a little? My brain immediately sounded an alarm. We were financially independent. This was agreed upon before we got married. Moreover, I was extremely sensitive to the act of borrowing money. It was my yardstick for measuring a person's responsibility and capability. I looked at him and calmly asked, "How much do you need?" "Not much, just 10 or 20,000. I was silent for a moment, then looked him directly in the eyes and said, "Mark, I won't lend it to you." He was stunned, seemingly not expecting such a blunt refusal. "Why?" "Kala, we're husband and wife. Precisely because we are husband and wife, I must be responsible for our future." I told him clearly, if your restaurant business is having problems, you should first look for internal reasons. Is it a menu problem, a service problem, or a cost control problem? Relying on throwing money at promotions won't solve the root cause. Moreover, you are a man. If your business encounters difficulties, you should find a way to solve them yourself, or ask your parents or your partner for help, not ask your wife. My words were harsh, but these were my principles. My view of marriage was two people fighting side by side like comrades, each strong, jointly resisting risks, not like a parasitic vine, one entwined around the other, absorbing nutrients. He was choked by my words, his face alternating between red and pale. Finally, he just said sullenly, "Okay, I understand." He shrugged magnanimously, turned to wash the dishes, leaving me with a desolate back. At that moment, I even felt a hint of guilt, wondering if I had been too heartless. Looking back now, it was just a carefully orchestrated retreat to advance act. By December, he launched his second, more aggressive attack. He called me directly, his voice filled with panic and despair. "Kala, something's happened. My partner, he has a gambling problem and ran off with all the money from the restaurant's account. Now the restaurant rent can't be paid, suppliers are demanding payment, and I'm about to go bankrupt." He sobbed on the other end of the phone, portraying himself as an innocent victim betrayed by a bad friend. Then he made his request. "Kala, please, you must help me this time. Lend me $30,000, just 30,000, I promise. As soon as the restaurant recovers, I'll pay you back with interest within a year. I can write you an IOU, even mortgage my house." He uttered the word gambling with such heartfelt pain, as if it were the most heinous sin in the world. How ironic that he used his true crime to fabricate a lie to blame someone else. This time, my suspicion grew stronger. How could a well-run restaurant immediately face bankruptcy because a partner absconded with funds? Was there no financial oversight? But before I could question him, he pulled out his trump card. He actually called my parents directly. My mother's call came quickly, her voice filled with anxiety and reproach. Cal La, Mark told me everything. How can you be so cold-hearted? He's facing such a huge difficulty now. If you don't help him, who will? We're family. Shouldn't husband and wife share joys and sorrows? If you don't give him these $30,000, your dad and I will take out a bank loan to help him. I was furious. Mom, you don't understand him at all. This is between my husband and me. Why are you interfering? What do you mean I don't understand him? Mark is such a good kid. You yourself approved of him. Now that you're successful in your career and earn more than him, shouldn't you help him? I hung up on my mother, feeling dizzy. He had successfully bypassed me and attacked my weak spot. I immediately called Mark back, angrily demanding, "How dare you go to my parents? Mark, do you have any self-respect as a man?" He continued to play his pathetic role on the phone, repeatedly saying, "I'm sorry, I was desperate," and then circled back to, "If you just help me, we can get through this." That time, I still didn't give in, but the crack between us had become bottomless. I started to doubt everything about him, but I was too busy. My career didn't allow for a moment of distraction, and I never had the time or energy to delve into these suspicions. During the new year, we visited relatives and friends like any normal couple. His car was still nowhere to be seen, the reason still lent to a friend. He drove my car, and in front of relatives and friends, he was still the suave, successful good son-in-law and good husband. His acting was so superb that everyone was immersed in the dream he had woven. Until March of this year, Judgment Day finally arrived. That day, I was in an important project meeting at work when he suddenly called, his voice urgent and panicked in a way I had never heard, almost commanding me. "Cal La, you must come home now. Immediately. Right now." I had a premonition that something big had happened. I hastily ended the meeting and drove home. Along the way, I imagined countless possibilities, a car accident, illness, bankruptcy, but none was more shocking than the reality I was about to face. I unlocked the door with my key. The living room was dim. Mark stood in the center of the living room, like a statue of despair. Seeing me enter, his legs gave way, and with a thud, a man over 6 feet tall, he knelt straight down in front of me. "Kala, I'm sorry," he began, his voice hoarse like sandpaper. Then, he abruptly raised his hand and slapped himself repeatedly across the face, making dull thuds. "I'm not a human. I lied to you. I ruined everything." I was terrified by this sudden scene, and told him to get up and talk first. But he didn't listen, remaining on his knees, looking as if he had lost his mind. He self-harmed, cursed himself, and incoherently confessed to me. The truth was like a rusty saw, cruelly cutting into my nerves. The restaurant he invested in had already been transferred, due to poor management, before we even got married. The so-called partner was just a character he fabricated. He had no legitimate source of income whatsoever. He had become addicted to online gambling. It had started shortly after we met through the blind date. At first, it was just small bets, but later, because his so-called business kept losing money, he pinned all his hopes of winning on gambling. He heard that a friend of his had won money through it and asked for the website. From that moment on, he plunged into an abyss of no return. He gambled away all his savings, and then began fabricating various reasons to borrow money from his parents and relatives. When he couldn't borrow any more money, he sold the BMW he had falsely claimed to have lent to a friend. After gambling away the car money, he secretly took out a mortgage on the house under his name. What he called debt was not business losses at all, but astronomical gambling debts. He knelt on the ground like squeezing toothpaste, slowly revealing those shocking figures. An $80,000 mortgage on the house, $40,000 owed to relatives and friends, and the remaining $80,000 was various compounded credit card debt and online usurious loans. The most urgent one was a $10,000 debt to an underground loan shark, who had already issued a final ultimatum. The total amount exceeded $200,000. I stood there, feeling my blood instantly freeze. I looked at the kneeling man before me. He was completely different from the Mark I had known for the past 2 years. That confident, charming, ambitious entrepreneur was just an empty shell built on lies. And the man kneeling before me now was his true face, an incurable gambler consumed by greed and desire. "Kaula, I know I was wrong. I deserve to die." He crawled towards me, crying, trying to grab my ankle. "But now only you can save me. Please, for the sake of our marriage, help me pay off those usurious loans and the mortgage. As long as we get through this, I swear I'll never gamble again. I'll be your slave if I have to." I looked at him, feeling no pity, only an icy coldness that pierced to the bone. The money I had was accumulated through years of hard work and frugality, partly invested in stable index funds, and partly in bank accounts. It was my security for my future. How could I use my hard-earned money to to fill an endless black hole dug by a gambler. "I won't help you," I said, word by word, clearly and decisively. With that, I turned around and walked towards the door. I didn't want to stay in that house full of lies and despair for another second. I wanted to go back to my own apartment, the only place where I felt safe. My hand had just touched the doorknob when I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Before I could turn around, he had already rushed into the kitchen. Then, I heard the jarring sound of metal clashing. When he reappeared, he held a gleaming fruit knife. "If you dare to walk out that door today, I'll die right here in front of you." His eyes were bloodshot, his face contorted in a grimace, and he pointed the knife at his wrist artery. He was no longer the whimpering coward, but a beast driven to desperation. The more he threatened, the colder and clearer I became. I realized that this was no longer just a matter of debt and deception. It was a serious threat to my personal safety. Without hesitation, I quickly opened the door and rushed out. I ran all the way downstairs, got into my own car, and immediately locked the doors. My heart pounded incessantly, my hands trembling so much I could barely hold my phone. I took a deep breath and dialed 911. "My husband, he has a knife. He's threatening to kill himself." I reported the address and situation to the operator in as calm a voice as possible. I didn't drive out of the complex. I was afraid he would actually do something foolish, and I didn't want a life to be entangled with mine in such a way. I parked my car in a hidden corner and watched as, a few minutes later, police lights flashed and officers rushed into our building. Soon after, both of them were brought out. I was taken to the police station to give a statement, detailing what had happened. Mark, for threatening a life with a knife, was directly detained. The next day, both sets of parents rushed to the police station. Mark's parents were in tears, constantly apologizing to me, and then continuously defending their son. "Cal La, he was just confused for a moment. He was under too much pressure. He's not bad at heart. Please give him another chance." My parents were shocked and terrified, my mother gripping my hand tightly, her body trembling. In front of the four elders, my attitude was exceptionally firm. I want a divorce. Mark's parents tried every means to obstruct me, even offering to help raise money to pay off the debts, just begging me not to give up on their son. But my mind was made up. A man can fail in his career, he can have flaws, but I absolutely cannot tolerate deception and threats made through extreme means. Continuing to live with him, I couldn't imagine if one day he might harm me in my sleep. This had already crossed my bottom line. He was released after a few days in detention. I immediately contacted him through my lawyer to handle the divorce procedures, but he began to procrastinate in every way, refusing to show up, not answering calls, and not replying to messages. He seemed to think that as long as he dragged it out, there was still a chance. To escape this nightmare as quickly as possible, I had no choice but to file for divorce in court. In May, the court arranged a mandatory pretrial mediation for us. In the mediation room, I saw Mark again. He had lost weight and looked much more haggard, like a defeated rooster. Under the mediator's questioning, he finally agreed to a divorce. But then, he and his lawyer made a demand that left both me and my lawyer dumbfounded. He demanded that I refund the $30,000 his family had spent on the wedding. When those words came out of his lawyer's mouth, I even wondered if I had misheard. I looked at Mark. He kept his head down, not daring to meet my gaze. I was trembling with anger and couldn't help but question him on the spot. "Mark, how dare you make such a demand? When we got married, I didn't ask your family for a single penny, didn't ask for any valuable gifts, and even the wedding ring I bought myself later. Now that we're divorcing, why should I pay for your initial show-off and extravagance?" Even the experienced mediator showed an incredulous expression, subtly reminding the other party that this demand was unreasonable. And Mark, under my gaze, finally looked up and uttered the words that completely exposed his human shamelessness. "If it weren't for holding that grand wedding to satisfy you, I wouldn't have owed so much money. If I hadn't been burdened with pressure from the start, I wouldn't have thought of gambling to make it back. Ultimately, you are also responsible for me reaching this point." At that moment, all my anger vanished, leaving only a deep-seated sorrow and relief. Sorrow that I had once loved such a man who twisted facts and lacked any sense of responsibility. Relief that I had finally seen his true colors and could cut my losses in time. He blamed his gambling addiction on a luxurious wedding he himself insisted on having. He blamed his life spiraling out of control on me. This absurd logic would make even the devil laugh. Mediation naturally failed. I would absolutely defend my own interests. I wouldn't give him a single penny. Ultimately, we went to court. My lawyer submitted all the evidence to the court. Mark's credit card statements, long overdrawn, clearly recording his transfers to various gambling websites, the contracts for selling his car and mortgaging his house, and the 911 dispatch report from that day. The evidence was conclusive, the facts clear. The judge immediately granted our divorce and, due to the facts of domestic violence threats and his fault, gambling, waived the statutory cooling-off period for divorce. As I walked out of the courthouse with the judgment in hand, the Chicago sun was bright. I let out a long sigh of relief, feeling that the invisible mountain that had been pressing on me for the past 2 years had finally been completely removed. I was free. The reason I have written this story in such detail is to let everyone who is gambling, or about to step into the abyss of gambling, see it. Please see how gambling can turn a seemingly decent, normal man into a lying, shameless parasite. Please see what kind of debt-ridden, alienated dead and the so-called easy money ultimately leads to. Please see how, when you lose everything, you will twist human nature, wield the butcher knife against the people closest to you and who love you the most, and shamelessly shift all your mistakes onto others. Gambling destroys far more than just your money. It will completely devour your personality, dismantle your family, and burn away all your connections of trust with the world. It will turn you into an extreme, selfish, pathetic monster that even you despise.